Happy to see you. Shall I go landscape? All right, Sage.
Let's see what.
Do we want landscape or what are you lot? I'm on an iPad.
We'll take whatever. Not that.
Yeah, so go the other way. All right. Hello, everybody. This is the Actual Friends podcast. I'm Dave Rubin alongside my actual friend, Sage Steele. And Sage, we're missing people in these boxes right now. We'll explain why in a moment. But that was sort of the point of the show when I came to you guys with this idea is like we have four of us, me, you, Russell, and Jillian, and maybe some other rotating people that'll always pop in. But we were all doing shows. We got crazy careers. Some of us are getting married soon. We got kids. We got lives. We're traveling. Could we pull off a weekly show in all of our crazy places that we're always in? And I'll explain. I'm in a really crazy place right now. Could we pull off a weekly show? This is, I think, episode 4. And today we have 2 boxes. It's nice to see you, my friend.
Awesome to see you. And I think this is proof that I am your only true friend. Obviously now. Those other 2, whenever they want to float it. Actually, I think we might have a dramatic entry by Russell Brand, which would be very much on brand for Russell Brand if it's dramatic. Show. It is perfect. And I'm home in Florida for the first time since we launched this show about a month ago. You are where?
So you've been bouncing around doing the show from hotels. And yes, supposedly Russell will be on soon. You never know. Maybe there'll be some other people that will join us. You may note that I am not in my studio right now. So everyone knows last week when we did the show, I was in the hotel in Budapest. I was there for CPAC and a couple other, we did a live Rubin report at the Danube Institute, which is fantastic. Hungary, this just tiny little country trying to protect its borders and just live their life without being destroyed by the European Union. And then we flew to Israel, where I've been here for the last week or so. We're leaving at 1 a.m. tonight, but right now, just minutes before this, I sat down with former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, and we are here right now in his office. But his office is also the bomb shelter. So he let us use his Wi-Fi and sit here. So I'm sitting at the former Prime Minister's desk in his office, which is the bomb shelter. And the last thing he said to me with a big smile on his face, he said, look, we might get an alert and you're going to have the whole family join you. And I said, that would make for a hell of a show. So I am in the former Prime Minister's bomb shelter right now. That's the way we roll around here.
Oh my gosh. Are there little mini fridges and MREs ready for you to eat if you're in that bomb shelter for longer than expected?
He probably doesn't want me telling you all of the things that are in here right now, but it mostly functions as an office. And as the former Prime Minister, there's pictures of him and Biden over there. There's pictures of him and the former president of Egypt. There's all sorts of historic and cool stuff here. And it's really just, I have to tell you, Sage, it's been really an incredible week here. I mean, this country, which is just so tiny and under assault every which way, not only from rockets and bombs and dealing with Gaza and hostages. And I talked to several hostages who were under Gaza these stories. And I know how connected you are to the stories of women going through all sorts of things, whether it's sports or relationships or whatever. You have to come here and talk to some of these women that dealt with the most beyond imagination, the stories. I mean, you'll see, I'm not a big crier, but there were tears coming out of my eyes on some of these. And then the PR war that's just so difficult to fight and everything else. And then you go to Tel Aviv, where it's a beach and a Mediterranean party 24 hours a day. And then these last couple of days in Jerusalem, which, I've definitely been going through some kind of spiritual renewal, but to be at the Western Wall, which is the holiest site in Judaism, which is just about a 10-minute walk through the old city to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which of course is the holiest site in Christianity. And it's just, and the sense of peace here is remarkable relative to all of the stuff. So it's been something, my friend.
I know you have a lot to get to, but I'm so curious. What was your why? Why did you want to go do this in the first place?
I've been here. I think this is my 7th time here. And when I got invited to this event in Hungary, at the same time, I was invited to a different event in Israel, and that we couldn't work the calendar. So I ended up not going to that event in Israel. But I was like, you know what? I'm here. There's such a war on this place on the PR front. And it's so misrepresented in the media, and so many of the online people, I think, have such the wrong take on this. And it's so deeply connected to the history of the West and all of these things. I was just like, let me just come here and just try to show a little bit different version of it. I think we'll succeed at that. But actually, the best way to kick us off here is that I did a live show in Tel Aviv. And so, there's really two major cities, in essence, in Israel. That's it. It's a tiny country. So there's Tel Aviv, and that's like the cultural capital or the social capital. And then there's Jerusalem, which is the holy capital, and then the real governmental capital of Israel. And in Tel Aviv, we were doing the show. I think we were doing it late night because it was a holiday. So we started the show at 9:30, and about 9:28, the room is jam-packed, ready to roll. And the sirens start going off, and everyone at the same time, all looking at the phone because they all get the alerts on the phone. And the Houthis did shoot another rocket. Fortunately, they're shooting a lot less these days because Israel is basically taking them out. But I think we have a picture of the rocket right now. And actually, I don't even know if they shot it down. Do we know if they shot it down, or did it just land in a random part? Or I'm being told it was shot down. But nobody freaked out. It was just like we were literally in a bomb shelter. The comedy club that I was in was downstairs in a concrete building, and it acted as a bomb shelter. So, that actually gave me a great opening to the show, because it's like, if you're going to be trapped in somewhere, you may as well be trapped in a place with a hell of a lot of booze with 150 people who like you. That's pretty good.
Dave, wait, these people, I guess, are used to it. You're 2 minutes from starting a comedy routine, and you're in the zone. Did you start on time? Did you act like nothing happened? I mean, your opening line, I'm sure, was great. But
my opening line is, you don't want to bomb in a comedy club, but this is a little too on the nose. Like, this is just like a bit much. No, but that thing right there, in some sense, it set up the whole show. And sometimes you'll come and we'll do something live. We've never done something in front of an audience together. But, I like playing with the crowd, and I like breaking it up and getting people kind of crazy and yelling, and sometimes bringing people on stage. So it set it up. It's just set up the night for just pure unadulterated craziness. And that's what we did. And there were laughs, and it got very emotional when I talked about a lot what was going on, because, there were people there who've served in Gaza. There were people there who've lost family members. It's basically just a small family here in some sense. So that was that. And then last night we did Jerusalem, where I did a very, very different show. As I said, I was feeling, and I see the cross on your neck right now. I was feeling very connected to all of this. And you can't help but feel it. Like, if you don't feel that when you're in Jerusalem, like the thousands of years of history, because, they're digging down, and you're literally seeing cities under our current cities. They're digging something called the City of David right now, these are the steps that they know Jesus walked in, 2,000 plus years ago, when on the high holidays, to get to the temple. And they're uncovering that below, and then above they're building this incredible city. So it's just like you see the past and the future at the same time. Wow. And if you can walk through that, despite all the craziness, and not feel something, I don't know what to say about you. And then I spent some time with Mike Huckabee today, who's the ambassador here, and he's just absolutely incredible. And, he comes, it's nice having, I think, an ambassador who's Christian, who comes at things from a different angle, because obviously it's mostly Jews here. And he's just a wonderful, wonderful human being. So it's been really, really inspiring. I don't think I've slept. I've had about 15 cups of coffee a day. And I'm sure I'm going to crash on the plane in a few hours, but it's really been something here. Well, with all of that Israel stuff and spiritual stuff and Jerusalem stuff, look at this. I can welcome in a man, if I'm not mistaken, who I think has appeared. He's using an iPad, and he looks like Jesus himself, Russell Brand.
Shalom.
That was pretty good. That sounded right. That sounded right. Russell, I'm in the Holy Land right now. You are a holy man. Where are you?
I am in the former home of British Prime Minister Winston Churchill right now. Sirens could go off at any minute, but we will never surrender. We will fight them on the beaches. We will fight them on the runways, the landing strips, the pizza parlors, and the massage parlors. We will fight them wherever we find them. I'm just in an innocuous London townhouse as a visitor in London. I'm just over here in London to participate in what appears to be a war against globalist imperialism and an endless endeavor to shut down free speech. How's it going over there?
Oh, just that thing. I love the fact that for like the first 10 seconds of that stage, you fully thought he was in Winston Churchill's old home.
See my face? I was like, wait, what? I'm the one that is in the middle of boring Florida, and you two, yeah, I did. I trust him more than I should.
Trust me, absolutely. I think that all Americans think that British people all know each other as well. Like if I'd said I'm at Buckingham Palace, you'd go, oh,
Right.
really? Are you guys all allowed to go there? I say, yes, yes. I'll tell you now very plainly, I am no friend of the British establishment.
Well, do you want to talk about how it's going, how across the pond or anything? So basically, I got everybody up to speed. I'm in the Holy Land here. Russell, you would appreciate it. It's actually been quite moving on a spiritual and a religious level that I'll give you a call. We'll talk about offline. But it's really been wonderful here, heading out tonight. But how are you? What's going on?
I'm very excited to go to the Holy Land one day. I think it's my friends that have been to Jerusalem say they feel like they're at the center of the world. And I know because I'm reading the Bible every day. So I'm reading about the city of David. I'm reading continually about Israel's historic struggles. I'm reading about that. And I'm a citizen of the modern world. So I know what a divisive, difficult subject Israel's sovereignty has been. And I know that to be there as a Jew must be just a sublime and beautiful experience. And I pray we can return to a time where Israel and Israel's neighbors can live harmoniously. And I know that all of us ultimately want that at our deepest level. And I suppose as actual friends, that's the kind of good faith we should enter into conversation with. Me, I'm over here. I've got my own challenges and my own difficulties. To some degree, I, of course, have to take responsibility for the lifestyle I lived for a long time. I have to take responsibility for the fact that I've taken some very unpopular public positions. And I certainly have no problem taking responsibility for epic promiscuity, foolishness, hedonism, and advocating for a lifestyle that I no longer would endorse. But as you know, I'm sort of obliged to say, whenever this subject comes up, that I'm completely innocent of all charges, and I'm very much looking forward to the opportunity to contesting that in court, because now I've attended, a court case with wigs and robes and crests. And what I will say is I'm really encouraged by the number of British people that believe in free speech and believe in me and believe in justice. And I don't see that as akin to not caring about the rights of women or the voices of women. It's simply about acknowledging innocent until proven guilty, and in this case, innocent full stop. It's it's a very interesting time to live in this culture where people can, or where claims can be made in media that are very difficult to refute, but ultimately I'm going to find myself in court and I'll have the opportunity to talk about that more extensively then.
Well, my actual friend, as I texted you the day this whole ridiculous thing happened, I would never lose a friend or throw a friend under the bus because of an accusation. It is as simple as that, whatever that costs me. So you got nothing to worry about on this front. Sorry, Sage, you were going to jump in.
No, I've been struck through this whole process, Russell, with how open you have been when I first met you last fall and ever since, how open you have been about your past in general. It's one thing with the court case and proclaiming your innocence. It's another thing with saying what you just said, all my years of promiscuity and crazy partying and all those things, and how you have changed and evolved. Like internally, have you forgiven yourself for those times? Is that something you needed to do? Like, where are you inside right now with all that's going on so publicly and with your family, with your daughters?
Well, I'm not the relevant tribunal when it comes to forgiveness. I want and have received the forgiveness of God for the way that I lived as a selfish person who put my wants and needs ahead of God and the values of God. But because I can speak absolutely openly and candidly about that, knowing that I slept around a lot, I had a lot of one-night stands, and therefore, due to the volume, I slept around because, I don't know if you guys have hung with a lot of, I know you guys have hung with a lot of famous people. Being famous, it's not the same rules when it comes to attraction. I had a lot of access to women, a lot of access. Women were making themselves very, very available to me a lot of the time. And I really celebrated that and enjoyed that and felt like that's what I was supposed to be doing. But I recognize now that really my role is to love and serve everybody. So what I was doing was wrong. It was not illegal, and attempting to make it seem illegal, to make it seem non-consensual, is a pretty cruel trick, because when you're talking about things that are 21 years ago, 25 years ago, it's obviously, it's innocent till proven guilty, but in the public eye, we all know it's guilty till proven innocent. And there's no question that a lot of famous men really do enjoy the opportunities that come with being famous if you're a single person. And I have to say that can be, I think it's disingenuous of men not to say that that's a kind of messy business, because really sex is sacred. Sex is sacred. But the act of love, in my case between a man and a woman, or in Dave's case between two men, I think it has to be an expression of love and unity and a sacred thing. And if it isn't a sacred thing, then I think you're in the realm of sin. Now, of course, like as a Christian, there's all sorts of stuff around same sex. And my position is I stay with the kind of Christian I am is a Christian I ain't in no business judging anybody. I'm in no position to judge anybody about anything, because I'm broken. I'm a broken person, and I want to participate in healing and in love. And what I know about life is so negligible, so insignificant, that I want to focus on what I know to be true. We are here to love one another, and that's hard enough. That's hard enough without getting into the confusion of it. So I'm pretty good on the inside, because when we face great trials, we learn a lot. As Julian Assange said, I have a superpower now, said Julian Assange. I know who my real friends are. I know who I can trust. I know who I can rely on, and I know myself. I'm a person, I've been in 12-step programs for 22 years. I'm 100% honest about everything. I have to be. If I don't pay a parking fine, or if I am rude to someone, I have to apologize. If I'm rude to one of the production team on Actual Friends, or feel like, I wasn't really very nice then I've got an obligation to sort that out. And, that's what we're here for. We're here to do our best to atone, even knowing that we are atoned for by the sacrifice of Jesus Christ, King of Heaven.
Russell, I think you would dig this town. That was a long way. Yeah. That was a long way of saying,
get me over there.
Yeah, you should be in Jerusalem. There's just simply no doubt about it. All right, so I have to get on a plane soon to get back to my home in the United States of America, in the free state of Florida. So I talked a bunch about where I'm at, and Russell, we're with you, and I appreciate that. Well, I just love the heart. It's the heart, it's the mind, it's all of it right there. But Sage, why don't you take it away?
Well, this all seems so insignificant for the first few minutes of this conversation. But last week, I believe we talked a little bit about our friend Jake Tapper, and how I think most of us agreed how obnoxious it was for him to, or it still is for him to come out and here's my book, and oh my gosh, I was lied to by the White House and tricked by all these people, and great, you're admitting some things now, and you should have asked a couple of more tougher questions. None of us actual friends bought into anything Jake Tapper said, and I thought it was disgusting. And now I think what Karine Jean-Pierre is doing is equal, if not worse, because of her position in the White House over the last couple of years. When I saw this the other day, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? So, of course, the press secretary extraordinaire, I don't know how we rank them. See, Russell just told me not to judge people, and now I'm judging Karine Jean-Pierre, because she deserves
that in like the broadest sense. But, to talk for a living, you got to do a little judging. That's how it is.
And let's go ahead and show it. One of the tweets that was posted announcing what she is doing with her new book. KJP has left the Democratic Party. She is now an independent, and that's the name of her new book, Independent. I literally thought, is this a joke? Tell me it's a joke. And of course it's not, because that's what all of these people are doing. I don't begrudge anybody for trying to make a buck. I love and subscribe to capitalism just like everybody else should, frankly, in my mind. However, too little, too late. And when you stood, KJP, when you stood on that podium every single day for however long she was lucky enough to have that job, and scolded people in the media for simply asking questions that those of us on the outside already knew the answer to, and she lied and she scolded us, and it just went on and on and on. And now, I'm an independent, never mind. And now it's going to be a tell-all book. Is it okay for me to say screw you to KJP, just like Jake Tapper and everybody else who's now coming out only after their guy lost and they're trying to salvage something with their careers.
Russell, can I do the spiritual part here? I know you're our spiritual expert, but I have been in Jerusalem for the past few days. I'm sitting in the former Israeli prime minister's bomb shelter office. Sage, I think the answer is that it is not judgment of someone when you tell the truth about them. And what you just told was the truth, actually. And if you can't tell the truth, then we would just spin off into oblivion forever, which is what is wrong with so much of society. So my reaction when I heard about this story yesterday, and we were doing the show from the walled old city of Jerusalem, where I've been so focused on truth and history and all this stuff, was like how profoundly insane for all of the reasons you just laid out. In some sense, it's much worse than the Jake Tapper one. That's not a pass for Jake. But let's put that aside for a second. This one, you were as inside as you could possibly be. You were brought in for the wrong reasons. You were clearly not up to the job. You pulled the biggest lie. And, what's that Alexander Solzhenitsyn quote? We know they're lying. They know they're lying. They know we know they're lying, and they continue to lie. And she's the living embodiment of that now, selling a book. So it's not judgment to tell the truth. And if we don't ever tell the truth because we're afraid of being a little judgy, it's just going to keep happening over and over again. Russell, how'd I do there? I felt pretty good about that.
That was really good. I mean, because the truth has to be foundational. If we don't have the truth, then everything else becomes arbitrary. I suppose that's what's so hard about postmodernism, a post-truth world where all categories collapse. That, oh, well, maybe this is good and maybe this is bad. And, well, you can be whatever you want to be. In the end, what are our foundations? What are the foundations of our justice system, of our legal system, of our relationships with one another? Karine Jean-Pierre, I always kind of thought that she looked pretty irritated up there behind that podium, like she kind of was fronting up for a band that she knew didn't have very good tunes. And she was like, oh no, what am I going to have to defend today?
Right,
and
she tried to fake it with the hair, not the Sage way, the Sage beautiful hair, but she was just like, if I make my hair big and crazy every day, maybe that will distract from all the nonsense I'm about to spew.
Well, remember, because she was a Black gay woman, therefore that was the most important thing that we needed to understand, but I digress.
The news can't be every single day, I'm a Black gay woman. After that, you're going to have a different response. And I feel like, in a way, there's a kind of victory in the Jake Tapper book and the Karine Jean-Pierre book. But in the end, isn't this a kind of capitulation? Isn't it a kind of persuasion? Now, then, what I would say is pretty frustrating is they're not being offered as mea culpas. They're not being saying, listen, I was really wrong about that, and I should not have said that. What I should have said was this. They're kind of trying to present it as if it's a sort of a progressive understanding. Like, at the time, we didn't know, but now actually, looking back, it was a bit weird how Joe Biden kept shitting himself. Like, in retrospect, the president shouldn't defecate in their own trousers. No, that was clear at the time. There's never a good time to be the commander-in-chief and not being command of your own sphincter. So, it's not really something that requires hindsight or hind smell to resolve. But if I'm trying to snatch a positive from this, and of course I am, isn't this just the verification of the legitimacy of our position? And like I said a few weeks ago, before I was replaced by that other brilliant RB, Roseanne Barr, and I'm so sorry to have missed her and her brilliant impression of me.
She wants back in. She loved it. She loved it. So she's coming back.
Listen, I saw the impression because I was on the line. I just couldn't get in the call. Here's my impression of Roseanne. Dan, DJ, oh, Trump's great. Oh, I've just took too much Adderall. I'm confused.
Wow, that really blended the character and the woman.
Oh my goodness! We need to make that happen between these two. David, if you and I
love her. I love Roseanne. She's what it's at, man. She won't even say blue collar because she says working class is what it is, and it's a euphemism for working class. She's serious. She's a proper comedian. I love Roseanne Barr. So, like, I see it as like this is it. We're winning, and let us be gracious in victory.
Okay, fine. I'll soften. Just give me an hour. I really just think, to your point, it is not as if they didn't know this whole time. and they made a choice to continue the lies. I actually defended her at one point publicly, saying, listen, she's actually just doing her job. They are giving her talking points and a binder full of scripted words that she would have to, ad lib, fill 10 seconds in order to get to the right page to read the answer. She was terrible at her actual job. But once you're in there, you're not going to get up there and say, you're right. I saw him stumble 3 times yesterday. Like, she had to keep the lie going.
Right.
But I think to me, like, that was still a decision that she made. She chose to do it. So that's why for me, I am choosing to not buy any of these books. Her book, Jake Tapper's book. We'll see the clips. They're still going to make their money. But I guess I'm just saddened that they believe that people are that weak to not see through it. And to your point, though, finally, it is just so clear now to everybody who chose to put blinders on what the Democratic Party was all about and continues to be about. So onward, and at least we have, I think, a very talented, skilled, smart press secretary right now in Caroline Leavitt, all of 27 years young. But let's continue to call out these people. And in my mind, the only way to get back at them is to not make them more rich from this.
I co-sign all of that.
No buying these books, okay? My number 2 topic today. You mentioned at the beginning of the show, Dave, my passion for standing up for women, especially the most basic topic, which is women and girls in sports and these men and boys who are trying to take spots away and in many cases doing so successfully, especially in the lovely state of California, where 2 boys over the last week or so came in and won state titles, high jump, long jump, events that, let me tell you, there's a big difference in your jump distance in your times if you are a boy versus a girl. It is very simple. And here's the key. This has been going on for a long time, but because of what just happened over the last week, our commander-in-chief, Donald Trump, has said he is on the verge of handing out large-scale fines to the state of California. This is one of the news breaks here. A biological male competed in California girls' state finals, winning big. As Governor Gavin Newsom fully understands, large-scale fines will be imposed. So we don't know what those large-scale fines are, but if Newsom, and I tend to say by his name, Newsom, and others continue to fight this, like, do they not realize that Donald Trump is dead serious about this? Obviously, they don't care. They're going to keep pushing. How big should it be? How far, Dave, Russell, do you think he should go? Because I say all the way, just like with Columbia University, Harvard, like, this is the only way to make these people bend. And in this case, we have to break them, not just bend, break them from what they're choosing to do to these young girls.
I totally agree. You have to go all the way. It's actually directly connected to what Russell was just talking about truth. And then if you don't start with truth, then everything will spin completely out of control. The idea at this point, after Trump is back again and the culture has shifted, that they're still going, they're still allowing the charade, that anyone is participating in this farce is completely insane. And, I don't want the government really coming in to dictate all of these things. That's the last position I would ever want the government to do. But at some point when things are so wildly out of control, when the systems have all broke down so that in California you have boys beating girls in all of these sports, which every time I see one of these videos, they still pop out. And at this point, my reaction now is more about the parents than about what's happening on the field or on the court or anything else. I'm like, how does a father subject his daughter to this? So if no one is going to do anything, and I can only imagine, a lot of people I see saying, the girls just shouldn't participate.
No.
But why should we steal this away from the girls? Like, I get the inclination there, right? Like, they shouldn't humiliate themselves or lose to a boy or whatever. I get the inclination. But then you're basically saying to a girl, all right, then don't participate in sports if a boy is there. And that's not fair either. So, I would say go all the way.
It has been really cool to see some of these young women step off the podium or take a knee, like the young woman who was fencing, I believe, and received some awards for doing that. But to your point, they have worked their whole lives.
Right.
This moment. Most kids in high school don't go on to play collegiate sports. This is the state championship your senior year. You've worked your whole life. This is your dream, and you're going to step aside and not even, I guess, try to compete against the boy. Where are the adults in the room? And they continue to choose to not be there. And that includes Gavin Newsom, the governor. So that is why Donald Trump has to get involved, because it should not even take this. But it breaks my heart. I mean, Russell, you agree, right? These girls shouldn't have to step aside.
Russell, you want your daughters being beaten by boys in wrestling or what?
My daughters, I think, can take on anybody in any gender, in any discipline, because those young girls are powerful. I'm telling you that. Once you start rejecting, they're certainly beating this man up on a pretty regular basis. So maybe they're ready, and they're only 6 and 8 years old. But what's interesting, I think, is that Gavin Newsom appeared to be, perhaps in a cynical attempt to curry favour, repositioning, in particular on this matter publicly, I believe, when he was speaking with Charlie Kirk. It doesn't surprise me that's not made its all the way through to legislation. I was kind of most struck by the point made, I think, by Marco Rubio some time ago, where he said, why have separate categories at all then? If there are no distinctions, you don't need the category of women's sports. I thought that was a pretty good argument. I do feel that if you're a person that identifies in a different way or wants to dress in a different way, that's, I think, individual freedom should afford that, and it's not something that I would seek to judge anybody on. But when it comes to the very particular matter of sports and combat sports, which are by their nature physical and physically determined, it seems that there ought be a consensus, perhaps derived by the participants in the sports themselves. And I think it's pretty clear the way that would go. It does seem peculiar and odd that this conversation keeps creeping on. And I sometimes wonder if in some ways both sides are getting something out of it, and that we have to be careful that what we're not enjoying is a kind of anger, or sort of just enjoying the kind of enmity that it seems to evoke in people. But for me, I have a kind of, got to tell you, I love football, right, in the UK. And I know I used to just read online media, and I used to read a lot because I used to write for the Guardian newspaper. I used to write a column on football every week. And it was like, I'm not an expert in the game. I'm just a fan. This is actually a Sages section. I'm just a fan. And I noticed when they started to collapse the men's football, or you would call it soccer, and the women's soccer into the same category, something about it bothered me. And not because I'm a father of daughters. I want my daughters to play sport and to excel at sport. But in our country, like your country, football's it's a part of the culture. And if you start to report on Arsenal beat Man United yesterday, and you find out that you mean in the Women's League, it's just sort of a bit confusing why you put it there. It doesn't hurt to have it on a different page. Like, why is the culture pushing women's sports in the way that it is, as if the culture itself is where morality and sacredness takes place? If women want to play sports, do it. I've heard people talk about the Women's Basketball Association. It's like, they can't make it kind of work economically, and we're being forced to watch it and enjoy it. And so if people want to do it, it's okay, but it doesn't have to, the reason football in my country works, and presumably all major league sports in your country, is because they're working economically. People want to watch it and they want to pay for it. That's why male athletes are getting more money than female athletes, because the sport's generating more revenue. It's not gender inequality, it's economics. So you're trying to make economics and culture sacred somehow, make it represent your values. But the values change all the time. It might be different in a week. It's Gay Pride, and they're not doing all the emblems this week. They don't believe in that anymore. They don't put the pronouns in the bio in the same way anymore, because they don't really believe it. They don't know what to believe in. Listen, if you're trying to make yourself feel okay by changing your gender, then participating in wrestling, and you want to participate in the new gender, I guess the world's changing so quick, we need another category that's that category. Because, I suppose when it comes down to it, the advantages that are granted biologically to men when it comes to fighting, when you're talking about excellence, the competition is starting to be voided. Maybe if you want to get totally postmodern, you'd say, well, what about sports teams that have got more money than other sports teams? Is that a fair fight? In the end, at some point, we're going to just have to say the culture is eating itself, man, because it don't have no real values.
Yeah, and chicks are better at cleaning, so it is what it is, right?
That's right. That's a good point.
Oh my God!
Come on, Steele.
That part is 100% true. All I'm going to say is the one thing that does not change is science. Hashtag science. Men can't be women. Women can't be men. Dress however you want. Sleep with whoever you want to sleep with. But don't enter into those spaces where there are biological advantages. I hope Trump crushes California and everybody else who tries to keep pushing it. I'm done.
And I'm just saying, there's not a dust bunny to be seen behind you. Look at that place, spick and span. Russell, can you do this in 4 minutes? Because I've got people here. We've got to get to the airport. And if I can tell you one thing about Israel, these people don't mess around with security. Can you bring us home in 4 minutes?
Welcome to the Russell Brand section of Actual Friends. We're talking about free speech, and I'm here in the UK, and I've got a free speech story to bring you. We've touched on the story of Lucy Connolly, a mother that's been jailed for 2 years for a Facebook post, which, while incendiary, was well within the remit of free speech, particularly as she subsequently deleted that speech. Now, as a son of these islands and a lover of Great Britain, and as a true patriot, I'm happy to see that the farmers are standing up. I'm happy to see that there's a lot of protests across the UK right now. People in Britain are angry about Keir Starmer and the way that the UK is being run, not well, but run into the ground. We've got a story here about Keir Starmer saying that free speech is an important value, but Keir Starmer to me seems like one of them stuffed shirts politicians that will say whatever he needs to say to get whatever he needs to get. He prevaricated on the subject of gender, the subject we were just touching upon there. Oh, I don't know what a woman is. Well, I suppose a woman's whoever says that they're a woman. Now, since a different ruling and since the winds have changed, oh, well, no, a woman, it's very clear. A woman is a ladybird. The ones with the eyes on their chests, that's a lady. A woman's like a man, but without a wasp name. I'd know them. Keir Starmer, while there's peculiar stories going on about arsonists, that's not a euphemism, that appear to be attacking his property from the Ukraine, all of them male models, a really odd story that seems to point in a very peculiar direction. He had the gall and the nerve to talk about free speech. Here's a quick clip that third RB, Russell Brand, Roseanne Barr, Rachel Braun will play him for us now. Let's have a look at the clip.
I'm not across the details of the particular case, but let me give you the principles that I would apply. Firstly, I'm strongly in favour of free speech. We've had free speech in this country for a very, very long time, and we protect it fiercely. I'm equally, though, against incitement to violence against other people. That has long been an offence in our country, and rightly so. And so I say, don't know the details of this case, but free speech, yes. Incitement to violence, no.
Oh,
So,
how
Steele?
convenient! He doesn't know the specifics about this case. How convenient!
Well, he's a lawyer, man, and he lawyers his way through every interview. He's really brilliant at not committing to anything. And I wonder, Sage, where do you think that line's drawn between free speech and incitement to violence? And do you think he's just sort of prevaricating and flanneling there?
I don't know what prevaricating means, but he always was like,
It means that, but with words.
yes, 100%. And he is an attorney and he's very good at it and he's paid to do it. Congratulations. I was talking about this yesterday with all the crushing, that's my word today, that Donald Trump continues to do to these universities where there have been free speech debates, but all the hatred coming towards Jewish people after October 7th. And I am one that truly does believe that you have to allow people to say what they want to say because the line is subjective. It will constantly be moving. And even if it offends me, that doesn't necessarily mean that it was wrong or hateful. We don't know the intent. What I do know is if I'm an employer and someone spews hatred about Jewish people, I have the right then to fire them. There will be repercussions for hate speech, but I don't think you can throw someone in jail. What is that line? And that's where it's too dangerous.
Well, you're making the perfect distinction that the founders made between the government doing something and private people deciding who to associate with. So yeah, I'm completely with you on that. I think the other confusion, of course, is that, people are confused between speech and actions. It's one thing if you're out there with any idiotic or wonderful sign that you want for whatever your cause is that you might have the reverse cause for next year. That's one thing. But if you are with a mob of people screaming these things, also denying someone's ability to get on campus, or quite literally what they did in Colombia, where they took over a building and literally locked 2 Hispanic janitors in the building who are now suing them. There's a fundamental difference between action and speech. It's been sort of disappointing to see a lot of my friends who are mostly good on free speech not make that distinction and make it seem like a lot of the campus stuff has just been about speech. But the other thing as it relates to the campus thing, though, is that there's also a difference between the First Amendment's defense of free speech and campus codes. Sage,
Yes.
you have daughters in college. One just graduated. They have codes of conduct for their students that have nothing to do with the First Amendment. It's saying, hey, we are an institution and we wish our students to behave in a certain manner. And if you don't behave in that way, then the institution has to defend that code, or there's nothing left to defend. So there's multiple layers here. But Russell, I would say to Keir Starmer, I mean, his name should be Keir Stammer, because that's basically, I can't be the first person that came up with that, right? But
you are. You just coined that.
I never heard it before, but it seems kind of on point. I mean, it's just dribble. He doesn't know about the topic he's talking about. He doesn't want incitement to violence. And yet over, virtually every weekend in London, you see it taken over by people who are calling for violence openly and targeting certain people and everything else. So I suppose, surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Hey, do you know what? Firstly, well done on Keir Stammer. I'll be using that as
You
an
can
English.
take that one.
We're very reverential in my country, and we don't use puns like that on our leaders. It's considered disrespectful. But secondly, there's a sort of a human aspect to this. Lucy Connolly, I think lost a child, and she's was a mother who, responding to the deaths of those 3 girls that were murdered in Southport, posted something that was incendiary, deleted it later. Common sense tells you this is a woman who doesn't belong in prison. And common sense also tells you that the cold bureaucracy used by, well, I call him Keir Stammer, is exactly the kind of political mentality that we have to fight. People that sort of somehow seem separate from life, that just parrot talking points in order to legitimize authority when it suits them. If saying stuff on the internet can be made illegal, then everyone's a potential criminal. And that's how the authoritarians like it. Then they can pick and choose who they can drag through the courts or who they can bang up in jail. And that's the kind of culture they want to create.
And by the way, if I could just say one other thing on this, correct me if I'm wrong, Russell, but did they not just arrest someone in the UK this week who burned a Quran? And no one wants anyone to burn someone else's holy book and offend other people and everything else. Or I can't say nobody, but generally speaking, you wouldn't want someone to burn the Old Testament or the New Testament, obviously. But once we're jailing people based on religious blasphemy laws, and it only goes one way, they wouldn't have burned, they wouldn't have arrested somebody for burning the New Testament, obviously, or the Old Testament, obviously. Once you start doing that, it's like, well, where really are you here, Keir Stammer?
A British couple have been arrested for flying a flag outside their home. There's continual anecdotes about people feeling persecuted by mob violence on the street and unable to do anything about it because there's a lack of cohesion in this country right now. This country, we're not proud enough to stand up and say Britain is a Christian country. And as Christians, we welcome everyone. It's a tolerant country. But if you're going to have a country, it means you've got a set of values. And that if you move to that country, presumably you agree with those values. And if you don't agree with those values, you probably shouldn't live in that country. And I don't think it makes you a racist to say that.
Oh, I can tell you, being here in Israel where they're fighting for all of those things with insurmountable odds, yeah, it doesn't make you a racist.
But the key is that people like us need to continue to do this and to continue to speak up and point out the hypocrisies. I think they count on so many people being fearful because they'll be jailed or arrested or canceled or fired. And those are real fears, but it is our responsibility to keep doing this. So I'm glad that we went there.
I love you, great people. I'm heading back to America. And then next week, we'll all be in Florida. Not together, but that at least we'll be something.
Someday we'll be together.
One of these days, we're going to do this live. All right.
I'm going to be in your house, Dave. I'm coming to your home.
All right. I'll see you in bed.